Every American knows and remembers the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, which happened on the morning of December 7, 1941. On that Sunday morning the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. It only lasted for 90 minutes, and when it was over, 2,386 Americans were killed and 1,139 were wounded. 18 ships were sunk or run aground, including 5 battleships. In President Franklin Roosevelt's speech to the people of the United States, he began with these following words. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. These words have echoed through many decades since they were spoken, and anyone who hears just these words alone knows immediately what that speaker is referring to. But there was another attack just 10 days later to a member of our family which has been hidden from us for all these years. It was on a spring day, that Wednesday, when Ruth Dodge was born on the 25th of April 1902 in the city of Waltham, Massachusetts. She was the 6th child born to Obadiah Casey Dodge and Clara Sophia Thomas. Her parents were both born in Canada and immigrated to Massachusetts in 1887. Ruth's early years were spent in Waltham, Massachusetts, with her brother Clarence and her 3 sisters Harriet, Greta, and Rachel. She also had another sister whose name was Hazel, who was born on March 19, 1989, but died on the 14th of June 1899 of bronchi. After Ruth's birth, 3 boys were born into the family while they were still living in Waltham, Massachusetts. There was Melbourne Stanley, Clinton Parker, and Earl Kinsley, but Melbourne became sick when he was 7 months old and died of cholera infantum on the 5th of August 1905. The family moved from Waltham to Somerville sometime between 1912 and 1920. Ruth was 18 years old in 1920, and she and the family are living at 353 Somerville Avenue in Somerville, Mass. It was a sunny Saturday on August 15, 1925, and the family was enjoying the day. Ruth's father, Obadiah, was coming up the walkway and he suddenly fell to the ground, and everyone who saw him fall thought he would bounce right up, but he didn't. He was 59 years old and his death was caused by a cerebral hemorrhage complicated by arterial sclerosis and myocarditis. After his wake, he was then taken to be buried within the Dodge burial plots located within the Pine Grove Cemetery, Middleton, Nova Scotia, Canada. The circumstances surrounding his death was told to me by his granddaughter Harriet Comfy during my visit with her in 2012. Her mother, Harriet May Dodge, was the second child of Obadiah and Clara Dodge and the sister of Ruth. Harriet May Dodge married Edward Patrick Comfy on April 29, 1911 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Their daughter told me that both Obadiah and Clara refused to attend their daughter's wedding because she was marrying a Catholic. Ruth appears next in a Cambridge City directory of 1926 as a waitress, and in this same year her sister Greta Dodge Sullivan dies on the 3rd of September 1926. Her death certificate has not been obtained as yet, but she is survived by her husband and 2 children. Ruth's oldest brother, Clarence Dodge, my grandfather, has been suffering with a kidney disease called Bright's disease, which ultimately took his life on a Monday, the 15th August 1927, which was exactly 2 years to the day his father passed. Clarence was 38 years old and he left his wife Margaret Veronica Harries Dodge of 17 years, and a daughter, Gertrude, aged 16, and a son, Arthur, my father, aged 4 years old. In the 1927 and 1929 city directories we find the Dodge family has moved to 387 Somerville Avenue in Somerville. Ruth is still working as a waitress, and living with her is her mother, Clara, widow of Obadiah, Clinton and Earl. Clarence A. Dodge is also listed as died August 15, 1927, and his wife, Margaret V., widow of Clarence. In the 1930 census, Ruth's occupation is listed as a waitress working at a restaurant. Also listed in this census was her mother. Clara is now a widow, and Clinton and Earl both listed as working as pressmen in a paper factory. They are also two boarders living with the family at 367 Somerville Avenue, Somerville, Massachusetts. One of those boarders is her cousin, Ada Morris, who is the daughter of Mary J. Thomas, Ruth's mother's sister, who married Edward Morris. Ruth is still working as a waitress in a 1935 city directory, but the family has moved and is now living at 388 Somerville Avenue. Also living there is her mother Clara, Clinton and Earl. In the 1940 census we see that Ruth's occupation has changed to a matron at a private college, but she hasn't given up her waitressing just yet. She has also listed her income from other sources, and her average work week was listed as 60 hours. She is 38 years old, and it seems like her life is heading in a new direction with much more possibilities than just waitressing. The family is still living at 388 Somerville Avenue in Somerville, but the family has added a new person, and she is the wife of Clinton Parker Dodge. Her name is Agnes Ann Patterson Hickey Dodge. Clinton is listed as head of house, with Clara his mother, Ruth his sister, Earl his brother, and Ada Morris his cousin. The informant for the information in the 1940 census was given by Agnes, and she answered the family relationships as they related to her, instead of the head of house, her husband Clinton, so the relationships among the family members are misleading to anyone who is not familiar with the family. It was a cold Wednesday night on the 17th of December 1941, and everyone was still reeling from the horrible news about that date that will live in infamy, for it happened only 10 days ago. That night, Ruth was at a Central Square cafe which was adjacent to the MIT college, where she met a man named Peter Connors who worked as a floor man at a baking company in Cambridge. They talked about current events, and during their conversation Peter asked Ruth if she would like to accompany him to his mother's house and meet her. Ruth agreed, so they left the cafe together. That same night Edward McClaskey was walking up Albany Street towards Massachusetts Avenue on his way home to 43 Lee Street in Cambridge when he noticed an unconscious woman lying on the sidewalk. The woman was rushed to Cambridge City Hospital. Her identity was revealed the next day. Miss Ruth Dodge, age 39, of 388 Somerville Avenue, Somerville. She was listed in critical condition, but told the police she did not know her assailant, but had met him in a Central Square cafe and accepted an invitation to accompany him on a visit to his mother's. The details of Ruth's attack on the 17th were covered by the Boston Herald newspaper story the next day on page 9. What follows are the newspaper accounts of the facts surrounding her terrible attack on that cold winter night.
Friday, December 19, 1941, page 41 headlines in the Boston Herald newspaper: Cambridge baker held in assault on woman. A 34-year-old Cambridge baker, father of 5 children, was held by police of that city yesterday as a suspect in the assault Wednesday night on Miss Ruth Dodge, 39, of 388 Somerville Avenue, Somerville, who was found beaten, stabbed and shot on Albany Street in Cambridge. The police said the man would be viewed by 2 other women victims of assaults in Cambridge, and also would be questioned by Lynn police in connection with the investigation of the still unsolved slaying of Francis Cochrane. The suspect is on parole from state prison, to which he was sentenced to serve 5 to 7 years for attempted criminal assaults in Great Barrington in 1932. Miss Dodge, still in critical condition at Cambridge City Hospital, identified the man as her assailant, the police said. They said that under questioning he finally admitted the assault. He was held as a suspicious person, and probably will be arraigned in East Cambridge District Court this morning, the police said. Miss Dodge said the baker was the man whom she met in a Central Square cafe, and who invited her to walk to his mother's home with him. When she resisted his advances in the dark area off Albany Street, he beat her, slashed her face and pressed a gun in her mouth and fired it, she said. She said she bit his thumb during the struggle, and the police said the suspect had a mark on his thumb, which might have been from her teeth. Stains found in his locker at the bakery and on his hat and gloves and a knife at his home will be analyzed to determine whether they are blood stains. Monday, December 29, 1941, page 14, headlines in the Boston Traveler newspaper, Cambridge Baker held on $10,000 in attack case. A Cambridge Baker, charged with criminal assault and assault with intent to murder a 39-year-old Somerville woman, was placed under $10,000 bail by Judge Arthur P. Stone today, when pleas of not guilty were entered for him, in East Cambridge District Court. The case was put over to January 12. He was Peter A. Connors, 34, of Harvard Street, Cambridge, accused of attacking Miss Ruth Dodge, 30, of 388 Somerville Avenue, Somerville. Miss Dodge was found in critical condition on Albany Street, Cambridge, the night of December 17, suffering from the effects of a beating and stabbing. When arrested by Cambridge police, Connors was sent to a psychopathic hospital for examination. He was returned to court today as not insane. At Cambridge City Hospital, Miss Dodge is said to be recovering. The attack on Ruth must have been a very brutal one, because according to the last newspaper article she was still being hospitalized since that attack, which took place Wednesday, January 14, 1942, page 25, headlines in the Boston Traveler newspaper, Cambridge man given 12 years in attack case. Peter A. Connors, 34 of Harvard Street, Cambridge, a baker with a wife and 5 children, was sentenced to 12 to 15 years in state prison today when he pleaded guilty in Middlesex Superior Court to assault with intent to murder Miss Ruth Dodge, 39, of Somerville Avenue, Somerville. In outlining the attack, which took place December 17, Assistant District Attorney Disico described the case, before Judge Vincent Brogna, as a most vicious attack. He said a revolver barrel was pushed into Miss Dodge's throat, that she was slugged on the head with a gun butt, and was slashed on the hands, cheek and throat. Defense counsel told the court Connors had been drinking on the day the attack took place, and described the man as a good husband and father when not intoxicated.
It is so ironic that people who commit outrageous acts to others always have excuses for their deviant behavior. We can only imagine how Ruth's injuries affected her life after her attack, but what we do know is this. On Tuesday the 15th of April 1947, a little over 5 years after her attack, Ruth died. It was ruled an accident. Her place of death was listed as happening at 45 Tremont Street in Somerville. Her cause of death was a fractured skull and written on her death certificate, her occupation, a rubber worker. One can only wonder if her injuries suffered at the hands of Peter Connors contributed in any way to her untimely death. Further investigation will continue concerning her death and the circumstances surrounding it. Epilogue. Peter Connors lived on 119 Harvard Street with his family, which is behind the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's College Complex, and only some 1,500 feet from the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Albany Street where Ruth was laying after he attacked her that night and left her there to die. Peter Connors met and married his wife Bessie Elizabeth Bird on the 7th of October 1931 in Brandon, Vermont. He was 24 years old, she was 18 years old. In their marriage records, his wife Elizabeth was living in Forestdale, Brandon, Vermont. In later years she dropped Bessie and just used her middle name, Elizabeth. Peter hits the newspaper just 9 months after he marries Elizabeth. The date Thursday, July 14, 1932, in the Springfield Republican newspaper on page 4, which stated the following: Peter A. Connors of Forestdale, Vermont. Assault with intent to rape Blanche Solti at New Marlborough, June 17, last, not guilty. Same defendant, assault with intent to rape Elizabeth Donovan at New Marlborough, June 17, last, not guilty. Further investigation is needed to uncover the incident which caused him to be on parole at the time he attacked Ruth. Another fact that was uncovered, and it concerned Peter's younger brother, whose name was Martin J. Connors Jr., who was named after his father. It seems like Martin was as bad as his older brother, because in 1940 Martin was incarcerated in Norfolk prison in 1940. At the time of Ruth's assault, the ages of Peter's 5 children ranged from 8 years old to a few months old. We know these facts from their 1940 census and Peter's obituary. Yes, Peter died on the 17th of January 1966 in Medford, Massachusetts at the age of 58. And in his obituary his children are mentioned, all 5. We could only identify 4 from their 1940 census, so Roger must have been born in 1941 before the attack, because the newspaper accounts said he had 5 children and Roger was listed in his obituary as the 5th. One can only imagine how difficult life had to be for Peter's family during his time in prison. In one of Peter's obituary it stated that a Requiem High Mass was sung for Peter. Well, looking back on his life, he would need much more than a song to erase the hurt he inflicted on so many people, even the ones he was swore to love, protect and care for. The Lord only knows how Elizabeth endured those years married to Peter. I can just picture a young and naive Vermont girl getting swept away by a street-smart thug from Lawrence, Massachusetts, but it didn't take her too much time to figure that out, just 9 months. Elizabeth passed away in Northampton, Massachusetts on the 27th of January 1997 at the age of 84. Rest in peace, Elizabeth. We know you're in heaven because you did your time in hell.